low G or high G? What is it? Does it matter? And which one should you choose? Let's say you go to your first ukulele meetup and you overhear some people talking about their instruments. What are you playing? Somebody might say, I got a low G. And another person might say, I brought my high G. Well, what exactly are they talking about? They're talking about the way their instrument is strung. So, standard tuning on the ukulele or ukulele is considered C6 tuning nowadays. And that means that your instrument is tuned to an open C6 chord. So that means that your strings from your nose to your toes are G, C, E, and A. And we number them 4, 3, 2, 1. So that is considered standard C6 tuning. So you'll have a G string on the string closest to your nose. So when they talk about low G or high G, they're talking specifically about a set of strings that has a different G string on it. If you go to a music store and you ask for some ukulele strings, and you say, I need some strings for my ukulele. And they'll say, okay, and they'll hand you a pack and you might not know what you're getting. Or they might say to you, high G or low G, if they're a better music store. And you want to make sure you order the right stuff, especially if you're ordering online and you have no one to talk to. So when you order a low G string set, the string closest to your nose is lower in pitch, like this one. If you order a high G string set, the string closest to your nose is going to sound like that. So this is a ukulele that has a string set that is a low G string set. And let's compare that to a uk that has a high G string set. So this is high G. String closest to my nose has that high sound. All right? And if I play an open C6 chord, which is just the strings, it has the sound of my dog has fleas. When you buy a mass-produced ukulele, usually lower to mid price range, they almost always come with a high G on the top. And the reason for that is they're cheaper to produce. Not because it's better one way or the other. It's just cheaper to produce. In the old days, a lot of the books, when they first started learning how to do tab for the ukulele, and they first started putting out tab books, some of the ukulele books that first came out were tabbed for high G instruments. But that trend has been changing, and a lot of people now are tabbing out books for low G as well. So what are the advantages of playing an instrument that has a string set with a high G string on it? If you're from across the pond and you like the George Formby style, his technique used that G string a lot. And a lot of really fast strumming. So if you like that style of playing and that's what you're really, really into, then a high G might be for you if you want to just stick with that. Or if you just want to play at meetups and you don't really ever want to finger pick, you're going to be playing mostly CF and G7 forever, you might want to stick with the high G. Now, the high G does have a different sound, and some people prefer that sound. But what it doesn't have are bass notes. So this is how that will affect you. If you try and do a scale on a high G, it doesn't sound right. That's why almost all beginning ukulele books teach you scales from the third string, the C string. Because if you start your scale work from the fourth string, it don't sound right. Why is that? Because high G has a high pitch string closest to your nose, followed by a low pitch string. That's called reentrant tuning. That's the same tuning a 5-string banjo uses. The same kind of, well, not the same tuning, but the same string set idea that a banjo uses. Also, the sitar often uses reentrant tuning to get into the strings. And usually a reentrant tuning thing has a high drone string. So the 5th string on the banjo is usually used as a drone string. So that's high G. So let's look at the low G strung instrument. So here's a low G strung instrument. I have a low string there. So what are the advantages over the high G? Well, you have bass notes. You have 5 extra notes. So on the high G, your lowest note is the open C string. On the low G, you've got B, B flat, A flat, or G sharp, and G. So you've got 5 additional notes to work with. That's just a lot more fun. 5 more notes. So that is a great advantage for the low G. Another advantage is the thing about scales. So on a high G, if you want your scales to sound right, you play them starting on the C string. On a low G, you can start them on the G string and go right over to the C string. It's fun, and it's a better way to practice your scales up and down the neck. For jamming, because the strings are in order of descending pitch, when you do your pentatonic scale, they just sound right on a low G. Another reason the low G is a good choice is because we have low strings, we have octaves. So when I play octaves on the low G, I'm actually playing an octave. It's nice to have that ability. So if you're playing, let's say, blues, you have lower notes to work with for your leads and your pentatonic scales and your groove, right? It's nice to have that. If you're doing kind of a rock and roll thing, it's nice to have those notes. That's really nice to be able to do that. If you're doing some kind of jazzy stuff, you know, and it's nice to have just those extra notes to move around. It's a cool thing to have. If you're doing classical or Spanish classical music, like say a Malagueña, it's nice to have the low note right there. So then you can do have your pitches, right? That's a nice thing to have. If you are a finger picker, having low G is essential, because that allows you to have bass parts that move a little bit. And if you're doing finger style arrangements, it's nice to be able to have a lot more harmonic options up and down the neck. You can do those little kind of runs, right? And you have an option with your finger picking to use those bass notes. It's just fun to be able to horse around and use those extra notes. What are the disadvantages of low G? One disadvantage is the earlier books for tab were written a lot in high G. And if you understand where that is on the tab, you can adjust those, but that's hard to do, and most people aren't able to do that. A lot of the new books are coming out, and there's low G books out now. And of course, you can learn from videos, from people who play. And you can learn a lot in low G there, because most players, even Hawaiian players now, are starting to convert to that low G more. But singer-songwriters, jazz, classical players, people who just want to rock out and play, fun stuff, they're migrating to the low G. So the only real disadvantage, other than that some of the materials haven't caught up yet on low G, I've occasionally heard people say, but that low G string is overpowering, and for some reason they have a problem because that's a deeper string that it rings out. Well, the problem isn't that there's a problem with the string. The problem is they haven't learned the techniques, or they don't have the proper fundamentals on the instrument to stop that from happening. So if you know what you're doing, that is never a problem. It's just how well you're trained. So don't let something like that stop you. So the low G comes with a different string on the top. So when you go to buy your strings, like say you're getting them online, or you go to a music store, if it's a good music store and you ask for a set of ukulele strings, they're going to say, do you want high G or low G? Then you know that at least they know the difference. But if you just say, I'd like to buy a set of ukulele strings, and they just throw you one, and you buy it, you don't know what you're getting. So you have to look at the package, and does it say high G or low G on the package? It's good to know, especially if you're buying online, right? If you buy online, you want to know what you're getting. So if you buy a low G string set, the top string closest to your nose comes in two different ways. One has a winding around it, and it's called a wound string. And the other string is just a plain nylon or whatever substrate the string is made out of string that's just thicker than the other strings. The difference between the two is a steel string has a little bit different sound to it, and it's got a little more punch, and a nylon string has a little bit more of a jazz classical sound to it. So it just depends on your personal taste on that. So that, in a nutshell, is the difference between high G and low G. They're both great. What should you do? Well, what I recommend to all my students, my first instrument, if it has a high G, I keep it. When I get better, and I deserve the next instrument, which you deserve right now, then invest in a quality instrument, something not cheap, something well made. And then put a low G string on that instrument, and then you can keep your high G string. For me, I have a high G and a low G, and honestly, the only time I ever play that high G is when I'm doing an instructional video and I have to show somebody. The rest of the time, I have more fun with low G. So to sum it up, both low and high G are great instruments. If you want to have more fun, I highly recommend that you have an instrument with low G. So as you get better and you're ready to upgrade, buy a nice quality ukulele, put a low G string on it, and then have more fun. I've taught thousands of students, and almost without exception, every single one started with a concert or a soprano in high G, and they almost all now play a tenor with a low G, except for one little itty bitty woman. But other than that, that's what they go for, and that's what I did naturally too. So you should have a concert or a tenor to put a low G on. They do make certain instruments that will take a low G string that are soprano, if you really got to have that little tiny one. So I'll show you an example of that. This is an instrument made by Pepe Romero, and it's a little soprano. And it has a low G string on it. So it's great for little finger picking things, and you put it in your backpack and go camping with it. So there is an option for you for the little small tiny ones. All right. So just remember, you can just put one string on and change from low G to high G. If you don't like it, change it back. You don't have to put the whole set of strings on. You can buy those strings individually online too. Do not use guitar strings. That will not work. Make sure you buy ukulele strings, and just be aware that there's a low G string set and a high G string set. Play on. Kev from the TikiNation.com. I'll see you in the next one.
Because done is better than perfect.